The coalition demanding a restart of cruising from U.S. ports includes cruise line CEOs, longshoremen, politicians, Democrats, and Republicans.
And that was arranged by the Miami Congresswoman whose district includes Port Miami, Maria Salazar, with us live today to talk cruising and a lot more. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Congresswoman, good morning. Great to see you.
How are you? Good. My pleasure. You were at that press conference, so wonderful to see you again, Michael.
Thank you very much. Well, let's talk. Let me just say, it was pretty remarkable that you got this wide-ranging group of Democrats, Republicans, longshoremen, corporate executives. Everybody got together and spoke with one voice. And what is the message that you are sending to the CDC?
Well, we're all Americans and we all live in South Florida, and we need to revive this industry. And the message is that the cruise line industry needs to be treated fairly, period. If the planes are full of people, if the hotels are full of tourists, if there are casinos open for people to enjoy, if you have gyms and you have planes and trains, how come you cannot have passengers boarding those cruise ships? And that is not only that is not fair the way they have been treated, but also is that the CDC has not answered for months our request. And let me explain to you. And I like my little notes here. Look what the stakeholders at the cruise line industry are willing to do. They're willing to vaccinate every passenger. They're willing every worker that works on those cruise ships to be vaccinated as well. They are willing to limit capacity to 60%, and everyone in that cruise ship needs to wear a mask. That's pretty good. Tell me, where else could you go? Any other venue where you're going to be surrounded by people that have been vaccinated, or the workers have been vaccinated? So there's something wrong here, Michael. There's something wrong, and the CDC needs to wake up and understand that for South Florida, this is a major engine, economic engine. I'm going to explain to you why. It produces 8 million passengers coming to District 27 into South Florida. Those 8 million passengers produce $9 billion in direct spending. That's a lot of money for District 27. 160,000 jobs, and 30% of those proceeds, the total spending, goes to the small business community.
Okay,
that's why you elected me, for me to go work.
There's a lot to unpack there. Congresswoman, let's all stipulate we are on the same page. This is a major economic engine for South Florida as a whole. Port Miami, Port Everglades, Port of Key West, no dispute there whatsoever. Devil is in the details, so let's unpack that a little bit. Let's talk about vaccines first. We've heard a lot of the cruise line. I'm not sure you were able to hear our last segment with Carnival's president, Christine Duffy. Talked a little bit about vaccinations. Cruise lines are willing to make sure all the passengers and workers are vaccinated, but with the governor's executive order that there will be no way for businesses to ask for any kind of what's called a vaccine passport. How do you, if that's the avenue and that's what's going to make people safe and perceived to be safe, how do you sort of bridge that gap between requiring vaccines but there's no proof that the vaccines have been done?
Because I think what the governor wants to do is to wake up the CDC. I think that's exactly what we all want to do. We want the stakeholders from the cruise line industry, the executives, to be sitting at a table with the CDC administrators and reach an agreement of what are the guidelines. And I'm sure that Governor DeSantis will be fine with that. It's just treat this industry the same way we have treated the planes, the airlines, the trains, the casinos, the hotels, all the other industry that surrounds tourism in South Florida.
Although, as we talked about in the last segment, this is not the same kind of setting. This is and the CDC actually considers cruise ships residential congregant setting. I mean, people live there for a while.
But what about a hotel? People are living under that same roof, and a hotel is the same thing. And you can get the virus within 50 minutes. Look at the planes. When I go to Washington, I'm surrounded by people. Yeah, they're wearing masks, but it's the same type of environment. Think about it. So if the stakeholders and the cruise line executives are telling us that they are willing to require everyone that gets on those ships to be vaccinated, and the workers that they will look for the vaccines and they will vaccinate everybody that works on those ships. Don't you think that at least the CDC should be sitting at the table negotiating with them? But they're not. Yeah. Congressman Jimenez, and he shared that at the press conference, had a very heated conversation with the CDC administrators, top echelon, and they were not considering the possibility of this vaccination that's happening right now.
Why
they need to wake up.
That is?
And this is one of
why do you think that is?
Well, because you see, we have found out that in Washington, you have the public sector sometimes doesn't work at the speed of business. And that's what I was telling Carlos at the press conference, that we're going to, my office, my congressional office in Washington, we're going to call once again on Monday and Tuesday. But on Wednesday, I'm going to cross the street and I'm going to knock on their door and tell them, I think you should be paying attention to us, to Jimenez, to Salazar, and to the cruise industry. You know why? Because we're here to work and to fight for those union workers. Yeah. Who haven't worked for 13 months, and they do not want a handout. They just want a hand up. They want a job and go back to the port and earn a living. Yeah. Well, and why aren't we allowing them to do that?
Yeah. Well, I think that, in fact, if you go knock on the door of the CDC and you and Congressman Jimenez and Diaz-Balart and others go, and it is a really bipartisan issue, it may well make a difference. Congresswoman, let's move on to another really big topic that concerns you, and that is immigration. A tremendous crisis down at the border of Mexico and the U.S. At the present time, apparently they have 19,000 immigrant children who have just arrived this month. You have a plan for immigration. You call it the Dignity Plan. Give us a summary. What is your plan?
My plan is to give dignity to those people who have been here in this country for more than 5 years. We, the Hispanic Americans, we have a major problem with what's happening at the border, not only the rest of the American public. And why do I single out the Hispanics? Because we're in the middle. We are hostages to the Washington politicians who have been promising for 35 years, don't you worry, we are going to give you that path to citizenship. That's on one side. And on the other side, we have the coyotes trafficking with the children. So what's happening right now is that the urgency happening at the border is overshadowing the importance of giving some type of legality to those people who have lived here, who do not have a criminal record, who have American children, who have paid taxes, who are working, and who want to just remain and just go home for Christmas. Yeah, and they don't want anything else. So that's why I created a Dignity Plan.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, if I may interrupt, excuse me. The House of Representatives, where you serve, before you got there, passed an immigration reform bill. It covers the Dreamers and all kinds of other things. It went over to the Senate. It has died in the Senate. So there seems to be a good faith effort in Washington, at least on the House side, to move something forward. It's stalled in the Senate.
You see, but that's a fallacy, Michael. I'm going to explain to you why. Because, and I am going to be a news reporter, not a congresswoman of the Republican Party. When you present, and Nancy Pelosi presented 2 weeks ago or a month ago, the DACA and the agricultural workers, what's happening in between? Yes, you're going to give some type of legality to the DACA and to the Dreamers, but what happens with the TPS? And what happens with those millions and millions of people who have been here more than 5 years, who do not have not committed a crime, who have American children?
Actually, let me just, can I interrupt you for 1 minute? I just a little fact check here. The act that passed in the House does provide people who are here under TPS with a path to legality.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we voted on DACA, on the agricultural workers.
A TPS is in there.
That's it. And you know why? Excuse me?
TPS is actually a component of that bill, and you were one of only
The
nine.
DACA.
You were only one of only 9 GOP House members, including all of the GOP representatives from South Florida, who voted for that bill. And so
Yeah, but and yes,
it's a
okay,
sell
the
job
DPS,
to the rest
but
of your
understand.
colleagues around the country.
Listen, let's concentrate on what's happening. You have millions of people still in the middle with no answer. So I don't want to just settle for, yeah, we took care of 1.8, and then yeah, the agricultural is another 900,000. We're talking about 11 million plus who have been here for more than 5 years. It's true that they broke the law. It's true that they should not be here, but you know, the system allowed them to stay. And that since the system allowed them to stay for 5, 10, 15 years, then we have to all sit at the table. We're all guilty, if that's the way you want to put it, and give them some legality. Right? But also we have to understand.
Hold your thought just a second. We've got to take a break. I mean, you were in this business for a long time. You know, we have to run a few ads here, and we'll come back and speak with you in just a minute.
BRB. We are back with Congresswoman Maria Salazar talking about immigration. And Congresswoman, your plan in the short time that we have together for a very long topic. And by the way, appreciate you bringing your own graphics. That is so key. So the dignity plan, which you've been outlining, why do you think that has any better chances to pass than all of the other immigration bills that have been spearheaded by Republicans in South Florida in sessions past that got stuck because the only real bipartisan vote on immigration seems to be in South Florida? How does the dignity plan, how will that fare any better?
I think that is a great question, and only God can answer that one. I'm trying my best. I'm telling the GOP that we need to attract the Hispanics in this world, in this country. We're 20% of the population. We need to attract God-fearing, law-abiding, tax-paying, hard-working people that share the same values that are entrenched in the Republican Party. We do not want to hand out, we want to hand up. And so I need to, as a Hispanic, Latina, brown girl from the hood, from Little Havana, and very proud of it, knowing that the American system is the best system in the world, all I can say to my party is join me in welcoming the Hispanics to the GOP. Because we share, I repeat, we share the same values. But the thing is that right now, both parties have forgotten. And I go back to the Democrats. The Democrats have been promising the Hispanics for 35 years path to citizenship. That is not possible right now. Neither Hispanics don't want to wait for path. They want legality. They want dignity. And that is what I want to give them. 10 years where they can come out of the shadows, they can pay taxes, they can buy homes, they can raise their American children, and they can go home for Christmas or bury their dead and come back. And if they want to, after 10 years, to become American citizens, then they can go into the redemption path. And after 5 years, then you can obtain your citizenship. You know, Ronald Reagan was the last guy who gave legality to 3 million Mexicans in 1986. You know how many people applied for citizenship at the time? 30%. Because in reality, the overwhelming number of Hispanics, the illegal ones, do not necessarily want to wait for path. They want dignity now. And that is what I'm crossing. And now I go back to Washington tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to my Democrat fellow congressmen and women and tell them, hey, join me. Republicans and Democrats working for Browns and Hispanics in this country.
I hope and I wish you well with that. Let me,
Thank
in
you.
the couple of minutes left, I need to ask you, as you are well aware, on Friday night, Congressman Matt Gaetz, fellow Republican from Florida up in the Panhandle, was out at the Trump National Doral speaking to a women's group, the same group that sponsored the big rally on the Lips on January 6th. He said that he has been subject to a smear, the lying media, deep state is after him because the FBI is apparently looking into him for having sex with a 17-year-old girl. All these other things, the House Ethics Committee also looking into him. What is your opinion of Congressman Gaetz? Should he simply sit back and let the investigation go on? Because, you know, he is out there loud and proud.
There is an investigation going on. Let's wait for the investigation and let's see the results. And the results will speak for themselves. Whatever and whomever that is found guilty of those charges that the investigation is imposing on my fellow congressman, Mr. Gaetz, it needs to then pay, and the full weight of the law needs to fall on his head. I am not going to pass judgment right now. We got to wait for the investigation, but no one is above the law in this country, and much less with that type of charges.
Well, that is a good point on which to end. Always great to have you, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. Thank you. And
always.
As Glenna said, thank you for bringing your own graphics.
If you tell us beforehand, we
Uh,
can make them really pretty and put them up while you talk. Just a pro tip there.
But you see, my graphics, you see, I handle them. And I know, I know you can make them too, but I know that these work. At least it conveys the info.
For sure.
Yep,
Wonderful
For
to
sure.
see you.
Thank you,
Thank you
same.
very
Take
much.
care.